So how is your movement going to be affected with the foreseeable passage of this new law, anti-boycotting law?
Good question. We don't know. My personal opinion is that we win either way. If the law does not pass in the Knesset, we win. Because we will have proven that they're scared. And they're scared of the repercussions of passing such a law, because with passing it, Israel will lose the last veneer of democracy. You know, it still maintains that image in the West of being a democratic state that has some problems. Occupation, you know, a few massacres here and there, but nothing serious. I mean, it's still a democracy. With passage of such a law, they will have lost that. And this is why our main allies against passing this law are the Israeli establishment. The bureaucrats in the State Department, the bureaucrats in the Justice Department, the technocrats. They're all against it, strongly against it. And they're lobbying more than anyone else, more than the left group, more than the human rights groups in Israel. The bureaucracy, the establishment is lobbying against it. And they said, you know, if you think BDS is bad now, wait till we pass this law and then you'll see how bad it can get. We'll be so totally isolated in the world. And we will look like South Africa without any difference. So don't pass this law. Let's maintain this image of being a civil democratic state. If it does pass, it will happen. I mean, Israel will get more isolated. We know BDS will grow tremendously if that law passes. We'll reach many, many new audiences, mainstream audiences, if this law passes. The so-called Zionists, soft Zionists, will have lost any ability to defend Israel. I mean, it will really disarms them completely. What can you say about a state that doesn't just make mixed marriages illegal, effectively impossible to carry out a mixed marriage, not just between Jew, Muslim, Christian, and so on, between Palestinian and Palestinian in Israel and in the West Bank. They cannot get married. They cannot live together, at least. I mean, they can have a paper saying they're married, but they cannot live together. And the children cannot live with one of the two parents, according to Israeli law. This is by law. This is not a policy only. So, not just that, not just the law that was passed recently that says Jewish communities in Israel can exclude others based on cultural criteria. Because, you know, it's not nice to say based on ethnic criteria. It doesn't look sexy. But cultural, yeah, it's okay. So if you're not Zionist, that's a cultural issue. You can't join us. You know, you don't go to synagogue on Saturday, although most of these people are secular, supposedly. I mean, they don't go to synagogue anyway. But if you don't go to synagogue, forget it, you can't join us. I mean, you won't fit in our community culturally. And you don't eat matzahs and so on, other funny stuff during certain holidays, then you can't be culturally, you cannot fit in culturally. So they passed a law that allows, I mean, it has always been there, but now it's law. Jewish communities inside Israel can exclude Palestinians legally, now fully, based on law. It's not just that 93% of the land of Israel is off limits to non-Palestinian, to non-Jews. 93%. In South Africa, it was 86% in comparison, was off limits to blacks, 86%. In Israel, it's 93% off limits to Palestinians, the indigenous population of the land. All these, and you're passing laws criminalizing thought, criminalizing free expression. Someone who writes an article saying, I support a boycott of Israel, the most civil, non-violent, peaceful form of resistance, you can be held accountable and fined. You can pay a very heavy fine. So they're criminalizing such expressions. That will certainly help the BDS movement. And they know that. I mean, the rational establishment knows that. The crazy politicians, the far-right, fascist-leaning politicians, they couldn't care less. I mean, now they're completely focused on how to punish the Palestinians, and everyone who stands with them, to the extent that they are oblivious to the real dangers that are happening, I think. But how do we deal with it if it happens? It's not easy. I mean, I know from many Israeli partners that none of them will pay the fine, so they will end up in jail. And wait till that happens. You know, the New York Times cannot ignore it.
Well, just a backup question to that, will it affect, is the law, sorry, I'm a little confused, I guess, about the law. Is it just for Israeli citizens, or will it affect you? Like, could you go to jail?
I'm a permanent resident of Israel. I have an Israeli ID. So it affects citizens and permanent residents. They added this little thing, permanent residents.
So, but people doing BDS work, Palestinians doing BDS work who are residents of the
It's
West
not
Bank?
clear how they get affected, and it should not affect them. There's nothing in the law that says others. But there's language in the law that seems to apply to all of Israel, what they call, including the West Bank. How does it apply? It's not clear. Because some Israeli leftists were saying, what about settlers who call for boycotting Israeli institutions? And there are so many boycotts now in Israel. There's a boycott against some dairy product companies. There are internal boycotts. There's a boycott, Israeli boycott against settlement theaters, for example. Most of the famous theater people in Israel are boycotting settlement theaters. Ariel and others, they don't go to theaters. Academics have come out in support of a boycott of Israeli academic institutions in the occupied territories. Like in Ariel, they're hypocritical, so they don't talk about Hebrew University, which is partially in occupied Palestinian territories in East Jerusalem, but at least they're talking about Ariel. So there are all kinds of boycotts in Israel today to which the law can apply, because it says that you're boycotting Israel and its institutions. Well, there are many people doing that, boycotting institutions in Israel for different kinds of purposes, right wing, left wing, and so on. Do you put them all in jail?
And for someone like you who has a book about BDS and is very well known.
I don't have an alibi.
Well, I mean, are you nervous about that?
No, nervous, no, but I mean, we pay a price. We know that we pay a price for our resistance. For any resistance, you pay a price. I mean, if you don't want to pay a price, you just accept oppression and you live as a slave for the rest of your life. But we know that we have to pay a price, and we will pay that price. If push comes to shove, I mean, let them do what they can. It won't go easy. I mean, I won't go down silently. Let me put it that way.
I have a few questions. One was when you talked about Germany, there was something that struck me when we were at the Balata refugee camp. They said that it was actually the Germans, and I don't know if it was private or the government, that was helping them build a mental health clinic in the refugee camp, and that sort of, that surprised me. So I don't know if you know anything about that or where that support would be coming from. And then I have a sort of more macro questions.
Well, let me answer this first.
Okay, great.
Germany, as the rest of Europe, supports many projects in the occupied territories. I mean, don't misunderstand me. It's not that they support Israel fully, including its massacres. Germany, I mean, is very forthcoming in supporting Israel's massacres in Gaza and Lebanon, everywhere. Germany always supports whatever Israel does. To balance that, quote unquote, they pay millions and millions of dollars to Palestinian infrastructure work, especially infrastructure that's destroyed by Israel. Europeans love to fix what Israel destroys. It's a pastime in Europe. You know, they do that for a living. They spend taxpayers' money to fix Israel's problems. And they're fixing a much bigger problem than just sewage pipes and trees that Israel uproots and sidewalks that Israeli tanks destroy. They fix all that, and they build clinics, and they help build schools, and they really build a lot of things. And when Israel destroys them, they build them again, never holding Israel accountable to pay for building them, because Israel cannot ever justify destroying a school, destroying a hospital, destroying a clinic, ambulance. They do destroy all that, and the Europeans pay to fix them. And the Americans recently are paving out roads.
So they're
very
enabling.
generous. Yes, enabling occupation to continue, paying, compensating for whatever the occupation does, and most importantly is the politics of it, bribing the Palestinians to accept the oppressive hegemonic reality of Israel as fact. In other words, they're bribing us through all these billions of dollars spent over the last years to accept ending part of the occupation, foregoing the right of return for refugees, and accepting Israel as an apartheid state. Europeans would love nothing more than for the Palestinians to play dead and just, continue living. without raising an issue about Israel's reality as an apartheid state. And those big settlements, just keep them part of Israel and move on. So they're bribing us to move on and accept injustice. And the Europeans are the biggest donors in that sense, even more than the Americans. But again, the US is wasting a lot of tax money as well. They pay Israel, they give Israel F-16s and all these munitions to destroy our life, and then they get tax money to repair part of our life that was destroyed. So the US taxpayers pay on both sides, destruction and rebuilding.